Most people think they're going to be rich someday. They're not. And the scary part? They're showing all the signs, just the wrong ones. Stay with me for the next few minutes, because I'm going to show you 5 specific signs that actually predict whether someone builds serious wealth or just talks about it forever. And I'm not talking about believe in yourself motivational stuff. I'm talking about real behavioral patterns. Patterns that show up in the early lives of self-made billionaires, first-generation millionaires, and people who came from nothing and ended up with everything. One of these signs is something almost nobody talks about, and when I get to it, a lot of you are going to recognize it in yourself and finally understand why you've always felt different from people around you. Let's get into it. Sign 1. You are uncomfortable with comfort. Here's something strange about truly wealthy people. They cannot sit still. Not because they're anxious, not because they're workaholics, but because when life gets too easy, something inside them starts screaming. There's a guy named Howard Schultz. Grew up in a housing project in Brooklyn. His family had nothing. His dad broke his ankle at work and lost his job. No insurance, no safety net, nothing. Howard watched that, and instead of fearing poverty, it did something different to him. It made him allergic to settling. He went on to build Starbucks from scratch. Now, here's the thing, not everyone who becomes wealthy grew up poor, but almost all of them share this one trait. They treat comfort like a warning sign. When things get too routine, too predictable, too safe, they get restless. They start looking for the next challenge, the next problem to solve, the next level. Most people chase comfort. Rich people get uncomfortable when they have too much of it. So ask yourself honestly, when life gets easy, do you relax? Or do you get a little bored, a little itchy? If it's the second one, that's not a flaw. That's a signal. Sign 2. You think about money differently than everyone around you. I'm going to say something that might sound harsh. If your friends talk about money the same way your parents did, you need to pay attention to this. Most people treat money as a reward. You work, you get paid, you spend it, you survive. That's the cycle. And it keeps 95% of people exactly where they are. Wealthy people treat money as a tool. Something you deploy, something that works for you while you sleep. But here's what's even more interesting. Future wealthy people often figure this out before they have money. There's a story about Warren Buffett. He was 6 years old when he bought 6 packs of Coca-Cola for 25 cents each and resold them for a nickel more per bottle. At 6 years old, he wasn't trying to get rich. He just naturally thought about money moving, not just sitting. Now, you don't have to be Warren Buffett, but notice this pattern. People who eventually build wealth almost always had a different relationship with money from early on. They were the ones asking, how does this work? Not just, how do I get some? They read the price tags. They noticed margins. They wondered who owned the business, not just who worked at it. If that describes you, even partially, you're wired differently. And in the context of building wealth, differently is exactly right. Sign 3. You've already failed at something. This one shocks people every time. One of the clearest signs you're on the path to wealth is that you've already lost something. A business that didn't work, a pitch that got rejected, a project nobody showed up for, an idea that flopped spectacularly. People think failure disqualifies them. In reality, failure filters out the people who aren't serious. Think about it this way. Two people start a business. One succeeds immediately. One fails. A year later, the one who failed starts another business, and another. By the time the first person is still coasting on their initial win, the second person has figured out 5 different ways something doesn't work. That knowledge, you cannot buy it. You cannot learn it in school. The only tuition is trying and losing. Steve Jobs got fired from Apple, the company he founded. He called it one of the best things that ever happened to him. Not because failure is romantic, but because it forced him to rebuild from scratch, and when he came back with something none of his competitors had: scars. If you've failed and you're still here, still watching, still trying, still planning, that is not a sign you're behind. That is a sign you have something most people don't have the stomach for. You just have to make sure the failure is teaching you, not just visiting you. Sign 4 is the one I mentioned at the start, the one almost nobody talks about. And when you hear it, you'll understand something about yourself that's probably confused you your whole life. Sign 4. People have called you too much, too ambitious, too serious about money, too obsessed, too intense. If someone has ever told you to calm down about your goals, congratulations. That's the sign. There's a psychological concept called dissonance projection. It's when someone is uncomfortable with your drive because it makes them aware of their own lack of it. So instead of dealing with that, they tell you to slow down, to be realistic, to stop dreaming so big. They mean well, most of them. But what they're really saying is, your ambition is making me uncomfortable. Now here's what's fascinating. Almost every person who builds significant wealth has a story like this. Someone told them it was too risky. Someone laughed at the idea. Someone gave them a very reasonable, very logical argument for why they should just take the safe route. And they didn't listen. Not because they were reckless. Because deep down they understood something those people didn't. Security isn't found in safety. It's built through risk. Over time, with the right obsession behind it. If the people around you have ever made you feel like your drive is a problem, I want you to hear this clearly. Your ambition is not the issue. The issue is they're in the wrong room. Find rooms where ambition is normal, where wanting more isn't weird, where the question isn't, why do you want so much? But how do we get there? Sign 5. You play long games. This is the quietest sign, and probably the most powerful. Wealthy people, genuinely wealthy people, not lottery winners, not one-hit wonders, they think in decades, while everyone else is thinking about next month. Here's a quick experiment. Think about a decision you made in the last year. Was it made based on what felt good right now, or what would be better in 5 years? Most people optimize for now. That's why most people are broke. Delayed gratification isn't just some buzzword from a psychology class. It is the single most predictive trait in long-term financial success. There's actual research on this. The Stanford marshmallow experiment showed that kids who could wait for a second marshmallow ended up with better outcomes in almost every area of life. Not because willpower is magic, but because long-term thinking compounds. Money compounds, skills compound, reputation compounds, and so does impatience. People who can't wait stay waiting forever. But if you're the type of person who plants seeds without needing to see the harvest tomorrow, who builds things without demanding instant applause, who keeps going even when the results are invisible, you're playing a game most people don't even know exists. And that game, it almost always pays out. Here's the real thing I want you to take from this. Wealth isn't a destination. It's a reflection. It reflects your thinking, your patience, your relationship with discomfort, with failure, with risk. It reflects whether you've surrounded yourself with people who challenge you or people who comfort you. The money comes after you become the kind of person it flows toward. That's what most financial advice misses completely. They talk about strategies and investments and systems, and those things matter. But the foundation is who you are when nobody is watching. Are you doing the work when there's no applause? Are you learning from the failures instead of hiding from them? Are you protecting your long game even when the short game is tempting? If the answer is yes, even sometimes, you are further along than you think. The signs were always there. Most people just didn't know how to read them. Now you do. So here's what I want you to do right now, not tomorrow. Right now, pick the one sign from this video that felt the most personal to you. The one that made you nod. The one that made you uncomfortable. And sit with it. Because that's your edge. That's the thing you build from. If this video hit different for you, share it with one person you think needs to hear it. Not to motivate them, but because the right idea at the right moment can genuinely change someone's direction. And if you want more content like this, real talk about money, mindset, and what it actually takes, subscribe. I drop videos every week built around one goal, giving you the thinking tools that change your financial life. I'll see you in the next one.